A man rescues a baby dolphin, but misses what's happening behind him. The truth on the beach changes everything. As Mark headed back toward the boat, a ripple of voices reached him from the beach. At first, he thought it was just cheers. People relieved and overjoyed that the baby dolphin had been saved. But the sounds shifted. The shouting grew louder, more urgent, more serious. Something was wrong. He had carried the fragile dolphin through the surf in his arms, and now he gently handed it off to his team on the shore. The little creature was safe for now. As he stepped out of the water, people on the beach clapped and thanked him. Others stood at the shoreline, eyes wide, watching as the baby dolphin was gently fed with a bottle in the shallow surf. Then, from the edge of the crowd, a man suddenly sprinted toward him. He stopped in front of Mark, chest heaving, words tumbling from his mouth in fragments. Mark was used to reactions like this. He'd been in the field long enough to know how the public often responded to moments like these, with wonder, with emotion, sometimes with disbelief. After all, this stretch of coastline near Coral Point in Ouray was famous. Dolphins thrived here, and occasionally even whales passed through. Mark and his team were always on alert. The SOS Resgate de Fauna Marinha Rehabilitation Center, which he directed, had earned the respect of locals for its tireless efforts to protect marine life, especially the vulnerable dolphin populations. The mission was simple: rescue, rehabilitate, and release. If the animals recovered, they were returned to the wild. If they were too injured or sick to survive on their own, the center became their permanent home. But their work didn't stop at treatment. They were always ready to deploy for emergency rescues, no matter the time or weather. That's exactly what had happened earlier that day. Around noon, the center had received a call from a beachgoer. A baby dolphin had been spotted near Coral Point, beach drifting alone. It looked injured, and what worried the caller most, it didn't seem to have any family nearby. Mark didn't waste a second. He pulled together a small rescue team and headed to the beach, hoping they weren't too late. By the time they arrived, a small crowd had formed. Word had spread quickly. People stood along the shore, watching the waves, straining to see what would happen. Mark saw the dolphin clearly from the beach, small, vulnerable, drifting. He zipped up his wetsuit and dove into the calm ocean. Soft waves brushed against him as he swam out. Behind him, his team waited nearby in a boat, ready to assist. They always documented rescues. Photos and video helped with diagnoses, especially when the animal's condition wasn't obvious at first glance. The footage also helped educate the public on the growing dangers to marine life. As Mark neared the dolphin, the boat slowly moved in closer to get a better shot. From a distance, the dolphin had looked small. Up close, it was even more shocking. It was a newborn, still bearing its umbilical cord. The baby was weak, clearly injured, and completely alone. Carefully, Mark cradled it in his arms. One of his teammates passed him a bottle of milk. He began feeding the dolphin, his heart pounding with hope. On the shore, quiet cheering rippled through the crowd. People were moved by the intimate scene. A man in the ocean, gently nursing a helpless creature back to strength. After feeding, Mark stayed in the water, floating beside the baby, stroking its sleek body to soothe it. The dolphin seemed to relax, nuzzling against him. The rescue boat wasn't far, but Mark didn't want to pass the baby from hand to hand. The journey had already been traumatic enough. He told his team he'd swim back to the shore with it himself. As he turned toward the beach and began his return, he heard something strange. Shouts, loud, frantic voices, some from the shoreline, others from the boat. But he was too far away to catch the words. He assumed it was more cheering. When he reached the sand, the crowd erupted in applause. Mark smiled, exhausted but relieved. But beneath the clapping, he caught snippets of confused voices, odd phrases that didn't match the moment. He gently handed the baby dolphin to one of his team members. That's when it happened. A man burst through the crowd, rushing toward him. Mark braced for another outpouring of thanks. But instead, the man, still panting, leaned in and said something that stopped him cold. Something incredible had happened, something Mark hadn't seen. His teammates rushed over, nodding in agreement. This was why they had been shouting. Before we continue with the story, we kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us share more stories like this. Thank you. While Mark was swimming back to shore, eyes fixed on the baby in his arms, something miraculous unfolded behind him. One dolphin surfaced in the distance, then another, then more. In moments, the water behind Mark shimmered with movement. A pod of dolphins had appeared, so many that the crowd couldn't count them all. But they didn't charge forward or act playfully. They hovered back at a respectful distance, almost reverently, as if they understood what was happening, as if they were witnesses. The beach fell into silence. People were spellbound. It felt like even the ocean had paused in honor. Mark was stunned. Guyana dolphins, like the baby he had just rescued, were rarely seen in large groups. And yet, in that brief window of time, a full pod had emerged from the blue. He hadn't seen them himself. But now, seeing the awe in everyone's eyes, he understood. This wasn't just a rescue. It was something much more. The moment burned into his mind. As the team prepared to return to the rehabilitation center, Mark found himself thinking deeply about what had just happened. The Guyana dolphin is listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. Their numbers are shrinking, threatened by fishing nets, boat collisions, toxic runoff, and the slow destruction of their coastal homes. In Brazil alone, some populations have declined by over 30%. With dams, urban sprawl, and noise pollution on the rise, their future grows dimmer by the year. If nothing changes, extinction isn't just a possibility. It's a timeline. That knowledge made Mark hold the rescued dolphin even tighter. He knew now more than ever they had to fight for every single life. The baby's mother wasn't among the pod. And given the dolphin's condition, the team feared the mother had been fatally injured shortly after birth. It was a heartbreaking truth, but it also made Mark more determined than ever to save this one. The team spent the next few days caring for the baby dolphin around the clock. They never left its side, feeding it, checking its vitals, and keeping it warm and comforted at all times. Everyone took shifts. No one wanted the dolphin to feel alone again. But despite their tireless dedication, the little dolphin wasn't getting stronger. His breathing stayed shallow, could barely swim. No one knew exactly how long it had drifted in the ocean without its mother, but the toll was painfully clear on its fragile body and on its spirit. The team could only imagine what it had endured in those first terrifying hours of life. Alone, confused, and calling out into the void of the sea. And then, the moment they had all feared came. Just a few days later, the baby dolphin passed away. Despite all their efforts, despite all their hope, it left the entire team heartbroken. News of the dolphin's death quickly spread through the local area. By now, the rescue photos and videos taken by beachgoers had gone viral. People around the world had been following the story. Now, the rehabilitation center had to share a painful update with thousands of followers online. Mark was devastated. He had held that baby in his arms. He had felt its heartbeat. He had believed, truly, believed they might save it. But as he sat with the loss, he began to notice something else, something important. If they hadn't gone out to rescue the baby dolphin, they may never have known about the large dolphin pod spotted behind him. That incredible moment, the dolphins appearing from the deep as silent witnesses, had sparked something new. The baby was gone, but now they had a new purpose. Mark was determined to find that pod. This time, he wanted to see them with his own eyes. He gathered the same rescue team. They headed back out in the boat to the exact spot where the dolphins had surfaced just days before. They reviewed the video, aligned their position, and cut the engine. Then they waited. Hours passed. The water remained still.
No splashes.
No shapes beneath the surface. No signs of dolphins. People stood all around the deck, watching in every direction, straining their eyes, but nothing appeared. Mark started to lose hope. Maybe the pod had moved on. Maybe he had missed his only chance. Then he saw something, a ripple barely noticeable, spreading across the surface. He leaned over the edge of the boat. There, just beneath the water, a dolphin glided past. Graceful, calm, watching. Could it be one of them? One of the dolphins from the pod? Then another appeared. Then another. Suddenly, excited voices rang out across the boat. More dolphins broke the surface, their sleek backs glistening in the sunlight. One by one, Guyana dolphins began to rise from the deep, just like they had the day of the rescue. There were too many to count. Mark stood frozen, watching the water come alive with movement. In all his years at the rehabilitation center, he had never seen a Guyana dolphin pod this large. It was breathtaking, and it came at exactly the right time. Back at the center, spirits lifted. That same morning, they had posted the sad news of the baby dolphins passing to their social media pages. But now they had something hopeful to share. The pod was real, and it was thriving. Yes, Guyana dolphins were still listed as vulnerable. Yes, their numbers were still in danger from fishing, pollution, and habitat loss. But this pod was a sign of resilience and a new opportunity. The center immediately set to work. They began drafting a plan to track and monitor the pod over time. By keeping close watch, they could help identify sick or injured dolphins early and intervene before it was too late. With careful attention, this pod could continue to thrive and maybe even grow. They hadn't been able to save the baby dolphin, but now they had a whole pod to protect. That evening, Mark sat down for the first time to watch the footage from the rescue. He hadn't had time to go back through it. He'd been too focused on caring for the dolphin, too focused on finding the pod. But now, as the video played and he saw himself holding the baby in the water, emotion welled up inside him. She had been so small, so fragile. It was a miracle she had survived even that long. He still didn't know if she had been part of the pod they'd seen. Maybe, maybe not. But as the footage showed the dolphins surfacing behind him, just as he turned toward the beach, Mark felt something shift. He believed they knew. He believed they understood what he was trying to do. And that meant everything. The rescue gave the center a brand new mission. They wouldn't just care for injured dolphins anymore. They'd educate the public, share updates on the pod, and bring awareness to the fragile lives swimming just off the coast of Guyana. The baby dolphin had been with them for only a short time, but her story had touched people around the world. And because of her, more dolphins would get the help they needed. To Mark, there was no better way to honor her than that. Did you enjoy the story? Would you have done what Mark did? Would you have jumped in to save that dolphin without knowing what was waiting behind you? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful, real-life stories from the ocean and beyond. Because even when we can't save everyone, every act of love still matters. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Have a beautiful day.